My girlfriend pretended to kidnap my daughter as a joke, so I called the police and she is blaming me. I am 28 years old and have been with my girlfriend Elisa, 25, for almost 8 months. We met at her cousin's wedding, who happens to be a colleague of mine. I also have a daughter from a previous relationship. My daughter, Isabel, is 6 years old and her mother and I are still in touch. We have a shared custody agreement and we have her on alternate months. Last month, it was my turn to take care of her. My ex-girlfriend Megan and I broke up 2 years ago because she wanted a break in our relationship, which turned into a breakup. She said things were moving too fast for us and she wanted time to focus on her work. We were supposed to be separated for a couple of weeks, but that turned into months and then eventually years. Megan and I met in college and were initially good friends, but we started dating around our second year. We didn't intend to have a baby, but when we found out she was pregnant, she decided she wanted to keep the child and I respected her decision. We co-parented our daughter, but I would say we still have some unresolved issues. That was part of the reason I didn't allow Elisa to get too emotionally close to Isabel, because I didn't know how Megan would take it. This was the first time either of us was in a relationship after our breakup, and we didn't really have rules about partners. However, she seemed okay with it when I told her, so I didn't think much about it and introduced Elisa to my daughter 3 months into our relationship after making sure Megan was okay with it. The two got along well and I was glad to see that. Then last week, towards the end of the month, I had a business trip I had to go on. I would be gone for 3 full days, so I needed someone to take care of Isabel. Of course, I contacted Megan first, but it was no use because she had been visiting her house. She wouldn't be back until this week because she was stuck in a snowstorm and there would be no flights or other safe means of transportation. I tried to postpone my trip, but it was somewhat of an emergency and I had to be there in person because it was a really important client. I couldn't hire a babysitter because I don't feel comfortable leaving my daughter at home with someone who is practically a stranger whenever I have to go out for work and can't take care of her. Usually, when I have to go out for work and can't take care of my daughter, I ask Megan or my parents. So, I usually don't have a babysitter. This time, I couldn't ask my parents either because my mom was sick and still recovering. So eventually, I thought I would have to cancel the trip. I still didn't ask Elisa because I wasn't sure if she would want to take care of my daughter for such a long period and we hadn't spent time together in person. She had always been under my supervision. I trust her with everything, but I wasn't sure if she would say yes. I had mentally prepared myself to skip this trip, but surprisingly, when I told her about the problem, she offered to take care of Isabel herself. She even seemed very excited about it. She was happy about the one-on-one bonding experience she would have with Isabel, and I decided it was the right thing to do. Of course, she also made sure. Elisa also seemed to get along well with Isabel, and we had been having video calls every morning and every night before bedtime, so I knew they were okay. On the 3rd day, things took a turn because Elisa decided to play a really stupid prank on me. To provide some context, Elisa and I have an ongoing joke about how she would run away with Isabel if it were up to her because she adores her. It's just a harmless joke, really, and we've never thought of it as anything more. I know Elisa isn't crazy and she wouldn't actually do it. But on the morning of my 3rd day, I received a call from my daughter. She told me she had found Elisa in my bedroom just a couple of minutes ago, talking to a red-haired man wearing suspenders. From the description, I knew she was talking about my friend and lawyer, Ruben. My daughter also said that Elisa had packed all her clothes and toys into 2 bags and told her they were about to go on an adventure without me. So she called me to ask why exactly I wasn't going to be with them on this adventure. At that moment, I panicked because if my daughter was telling the truth, something really bad was going to happen. Something about my lawyer being there along with my daughter's claims that their bags were packed and they were about to leave without me just didn't add up. I think any parent would have been scared by something like that. I had only given Isabel a spare phone that she was supposed to use if she felt weird or uncomfortable in any situation. And if she had bothered to call me, then there definitely was something going on. At least that's what I believed at that moment. I tried calling Elisa first, but she didn't answer, which scared me even more. So without thinking much, I decided to call 911 and Child Protective Services at the same time because I was panicking. I tried calling my daughter again to tell her not to leave the house, but she didn't answer my call. So I called my dad and told him to go to my house as soon as possible. After explaining the situation to him as quickly as I could, luckily my mom was feeling better so she could stay alone for a while, and my dad left as soon as he got my call. For about 20 minutes or so, I was sitting in my hotel room, desperately trying to get in touch with my dad or my daughter. I had no idea what was happening and I was too scared to even leave the room and go to the airport because what if they finally answered but I couldn't receive their messages or calls because I was on a flight back home. So I stayed where I was and kept praying continuously for some news from them. Finally, I received a call from a police officer saying they had only found Elisa and my daughter at my house, playing with blocks, and there was no red-haired man or packed bags in sight. He told me that Elisa insisted it was all just a joke and that I had reacted out of sheer panic. There was nothing strange going on at home and everything was fine. My dad had arrived at the scene just a couple of minutes after the police and had been there inspecting the scene with them. Apparently, Elisa was the one who made that call to me and had Isabel tell me all of that just to scare me and joke around a bit. They hadn't answered the calls on purpose because they wanted to keep up the prank. But unfortunately, it had backfired quite badly. I thought the story made sense because Elisa considered herself a fun person, but often she wasn't. I didn't speak directly to Elisa and only learned the truth from the police officer who had been sent to my house. After he clarified everything, I thanked him and apologized for the inconvenience, then hung up. After that, I called my dad and told him to take Isabel home with him. I was taking the flight back home that night, so it was just a matter of hours. I didn't call Lisa because I didn't feel like talking to her, and anyway, I had nothing to say to her. What she had done was extremely immature and stupid, and I didn't feel like talking to her at all. She sent me a text to say she had locked up the house and left the spare keys under the fake plant as I usually do. She also mentioned that there was no need for me to react the way I did because it was just a joke. She said she felt insulted that I even insinuated that she would run away with Isabel and that I thought so little of her. I didn't respond to those messages at that moment because I was really angry with her for her stupid prank and I didn't intend to talk to her until I calmed down enough. I returned from the trip about a week ago and spent the next 2 days at home with Isabel until Megan returned and took over. I told her everything about the incident with Elisa once she came back because I didn't want her to worry and panic like I had when I was alone in the hotel. Surprisingly, she seemed much more relaxed than I was. She told me what I had done was reasonable enough and she would have definitely reacted the same way. But now that we knew it was just a prank, I should at least talk to Elisa and try to patch things up with her if I wanted this relationship to last. Megan thinks my reaction was natural, but now that everything is done, we should try to talk it out between us. I disagree, and I believe if anyone owes an apology to the other, it's Elisa who should apologize to me first. She hasn't even tried to talk to me after I ignored her messages, and even in those messages, she didn't mention a word about being sorry for what she had done. She just told me she felt insulted that I had called Child Protective Services on her and blamed me for reacting the way I did. Most parents are also unfair to blame me entirely when she was also responsible for this because she was the one who thought it would be fun not to answer my calls. After Isabel called me, I tried calling her immediately, but she didn't answer. So I panicked and did what I believed was most necessary at that moment. I always knew she was joking about running away with Isabel, but still, I didn't think it was worth taking that risk. She even took the trouble to teach my daughter to mention Ruben, who was supposed to believe. She created a hyper-realistic situation to make me worry just to play a joke on me. And since her joke went wrong, she decided to blame me for everything without even once considering what might be going on. I don't think that's fair at all. I really like Elisa, and I believe that after Megan, she has probably been the only woman I've been so close to. So I don't want to lose her too. I also don't think it's entirely my fault that this happened, but it's me who hasn't responded to her messages yet. So I'm the idiot for calling Child Protective Services and having this argument with my girlfriend over her prank. Update 1. First things first, thank you to everyone who commented on the original post. The response was overwhelming and eye-opening, to say the least. I guess I really wasn't the issue here, and the comments made sure I knew it. Now I don't even believe I overreacted because when it comes to my daughter, I'd rather be safe than sorry. She wanted to play a joke on me and make me believe she was eloping with Isabel, and she succeeded. So, exactly what did she think would happen next? She was the one who didn't think her plan through, and she's lucky she got out of this without legal trouble. I explained the same thing to Megan. Well, she seemed quite indifferent about it because apparently the only reason she even told me to talk to Elisa again was because she thought I liked her. I could feel a bit of jealousy while we were discussing it, but that might have been just my imagination. I'm not sure. But there was something in the way she said it. Anyway, she told me at the end of the day, it's my decision what I want to do with my relationship, and I agreed with that. So I've decided to break up with Elisa and end things as politely as possible. After what happened, it's been 3 days since I posted here and 10 days in total since my last conversation with Elisa. So I'm sure things are going to be awkward. I've decided to do it at my house instead of some cafe or restaurant because under no circumstance do I want it to feel like a date and give her false hope. I've already texted her and called her, so she'll be here in a couple of hours after work. The reason I'm on Reddit right now sharing all this is that I'm nervous and I don't know how this is going to go. I've never broken up with someone in almost a decade and it's silly to be nervous about it, but here we are. I just hope I can end things with her and not end up getting back together with her or something. Update 2, we've broken up. She left 2 hours ago after almost an hour and a half of arguing about whose fault this all was. I'm not usually a confrontational person, but I couldn't let her put all the blame on me and then act like she was some saint who couldn't do anything wrong. She had to own up and take responsibility at least to some extent because her stupid little prank really scared me at first. She told me she was glad I invited her over because she said she wanted to break up with me and was looking for the right opportunity to do it. I felt relieved because at least we were on the same page about the breakup. So I told her I agreed and we should break up. When I said that, she got angry and started telling me she hoped I would at least apologize for my behavior before reaching this conclusion, and that's when our argument began. She kept saying I insulted her by calling the police because that meant I thought she was crazy and would take my daughter, which she would never do. I tried to explain that the only reason I did it was that I couldn't reach her and I was stuck in another city, so naturally, I was worried about my daughter. She kept arguing with me endlessly and called me names, saying I always exaggerated and I was the one who owed her an apology. After a while, I finally realized it made no sense to try to explain the situation to her because she was so self-centered that she couldn't even think about my feelings about the situation and only cared about herself. Plus, arguing with her was draining and I had no intention of letting her sit on the couch in my living room and then yell at me for doing something normal. So I told her I was done with her in this relationship and she could leave because I wasn't interested in talking to her anymore. She took it personally and then got up and yelled a bunch of words at me. Then she told me I had never been good enough for her anyway and that she could find someone better than me within a week of being single. I told her she was welcome to do that, but right now she had to leave because she was giving me a headache and I couldn't bear the sound of her yelling anymore. Then she left in a huff and kept muttering under her breath. I'm sure she was cursing at me, but I didn't care. I was just glad she had finally left because I had just wasted an hour and a half of my life with her nonsensical arguments. I don't know how I even considered giving her a second chance in this relationship because she definitely doesn't deserve to be a part of my life or my daughter's life at all. If you've made it this far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Now let's continue with this story, which keeps getting better with each update. Update 3, it's only been a day, but the aftermath of the breakup has already started to affect me. Elisa didn't speak to me directly after leaving, but late at night, she decided to message Megan instead. She didn't have her number, so she sent her a message on Instagram. It wasn't a very pleasant message. He accused Megan of trying to ruin the relationship he had with Elisa by poisoning her against him. This is so stupid because while we were arguing yesterday, Megan wasn't even mentioned once, so I don't know where that came from out of nowhere. During the 8 months we've been together, Elisa must have met Megan 3 times and has never spent time alone with her, so I don't know where she got that from. I didn't even know that Megan was the one who had tried to encourage me to talk to Elisa again, and if I had known, I don't think I would have said the things she said. She called Megan many things, including heartbreaker and the word with P several times for no reason other than needing a scapegoat. I was furious when I found out in the morning because when Megan tried to inform me, I was already asleep. I told her I was going to call Lisa and talk to her, but Megan told me not to because this was an attempt to get a reaction out of me, and after thinking about it for a while, I didn't think it was a good idea to contact her at all. I'm not happy about it, but she's right, so I decided to block her instead. If she tries anything else, then I'll probably just talk to my coworker about it and try to get him to stop her because as far as I know, they are quite close and have a good relationship, so he might help me. We haven't had the chance to discuss any of this yet, but I plan on talking to him soon enough. The problem is he works in a different department and we don't get the chance to see each other often, but I'm sure Lisa must have told him something. Her behavior towards me hasn't changed in the last week or so. But I'm sure now that Elisa and I have definitely ended, she won't leave any stone unturned to disrupt my life. I am stunned. I never realized she had this crazy side during our relationship because this is something I should have been able to see. Thinking I left her with my daughter for so long just feels strange now, but at least I was able to end this relationship before it went too far. I hope she'll leave this alone. Update. Hi everyone. So, this update isn't going to be about Elisa, although she hasn't left me alone at all. On happier news, Megan and I have decided to give it another try. It's been 2 weeks since the last update, and 5 days ago, Megan visited me with Isabel and said she had something important to discuss with me. It turns out my hunch about her feeling a little jealous of Elisa was right, and she confessed she had been feeling confused about her own feelings, so she pretended to be okay with me getting back with Elisa. Though that wasn't what she wanted at all. She regretted asking for time and then breaking up because initially it was work stress, our relationship, and our future that were getting to her, but after sorting out work, she was too embarrassed to come back to me and just let me go, and I never asked about it. So she assumed I didn't want to come back. It was just an epic misunderstanding, and now we regret it looking back. We were both really young and stupid and had no idea what we were doing. We let our pride get in the way of our path to happiness, but hopefully that won't happen again. Megan and I have decided to go on some dates in the coming weeks to test the waters, and if all goes well, we might move back in together. That'll work out fine for Isabel too. Honestly, I'm excited because I've missed Megan, and I'm sure she's missed me too, although we were too proud to admit it. I would feel bad for Elisa, but I did everything I could in that relationship. She's the one who ruined it. So I'm not going to sit around feeling guilty for moving on with Megan after that. Speaking of Elisa, she's still fixated on my supposed overreaction and tells everyone she knows the same. My coworker stopped talking to her because of this, believing my reaction was completely justified. I've talked to Ruben and even he thinks she went too far. Ruben and I are close and he's met Lisa a couple of times, but not enough for her to mention him in her supposed joke just to scare me and now him too. I mean, of course she did because somehow she was trying to make me doubt him and his intentions too. My coworker and I talked about Elisa just a week ago and he told me she's been unbearable since the breakup and has painted herself as the victim of some great tragedy, which isn't true. When he called her out on her nonsense, she got mad at him too, and that's how they ended up not speaking at all. She's still texting me through various accounts, but none of them are nice. She just calls me crazy and a psychopath. We can all see who the crazy one is now. I haven't responded yet, but I'll talk to Ruben once he's a little less busy so we can start looking into restraining orders because I don't want her lurking around my house at any time. If this escalates, not because I'm worried about me but because of Isabel. I don't like to think about it. But with people like Elisa, you really can't know what she'll do just to get back at me, especially once she finds out that Megan and I are getting back together once again. Update 5. Some of you weren't happy that Megan and I were getting back together and actually sympathized with Elisa. But when she made an insensitive joke about me, Megan and I were just friends and nothing more. I've always respected boundaries and there has been no cheating whatsoever, emotional or otherwise, so I don't think anyone should jump to unnecessary conclusions. That being said, Megan and I are officially back together and she's even scheduled to move in this week. It's been a month since the last update, and since then, Elisa has apologized to me in an email because apparently she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder a couple of years ago but stopped going to therapy because she felt she was improving. This explains her strange behavior because she says she's now more prone to anger issues than before, which caused that reaction, and there are many other problematic things in her life that I didn't know about before. Her father passed away a few weeks before we broke up and she had a tense relationship with him, which probably triggered her inexplicable behavior. Not the joke, that was very typical of her, but what came after. I wish her the best, but we're no longer in contact.